Good morning, and welcome to Unity of Music City. It's wonderful to be here. I'm your host today and guest speaker, Vic Sorrell. And although we have not yet opened the doors to start having services again, even though there's only about 3 of us in the room, I can feel the love that's always in this space, the love that is the result of your hearts, your spirits, your wisdom. That's always in this place. And I'm excited today because a good friend of mine has agreed to come and provide music. So I'd like to introduce her to start things off, accompanied by Chris Hatfield on keys. Good morning to Miss Jackie Wilson.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Having us. I love the Lord. He heard my cry and pitied every groan. Long as I live and troubles rise, I'll hasten to His throne. Oh, I love the Lord. I surely do love the Lord. He heard my cry, and He pitied every groan. Oh, every groan. Long as I live, long as I live, and troubles rise, I'll hasten to His throne. Oh yes, I will. I'll run to the Lord. Say, long as I live, I will stand here beside you on my knees. I pray. I love the Lord. Yeah, I hasten to His throne.
And in times that may continue to be unique, we fall safely into the changeless, formless, the changeless, everything that is eternal. For as long as we're breathing, then there is more right with us than wrong with us, no matter what is wrong with us. One presence, one power, one love, our love, around us, within us, as us, no separation. We hasten to that love for certainty in unique times. We hasten to that peace that knows no end. We hasten to the calm that only comes from within. And during unique times, we have the opportunity to know something is building, something wants to make something better out of each of us, for our expression to be brighter, for our expression to be stronger, a stronger expression of love, of certainty, of knowing that we are creative, that we are powerful, and that our focus on this certainty is our power. And in the silence, together, we consider that power, that creativity, that possibility now. For as long as we're breathing, there is more right with us than wrong with us, no matter what is wrong with us. And we hasten to the love that we are.
I'll hasten to his throne. I'll hasten to his throne. I'll hasten to his throne. I love the Lord. Thank you. This is a beautiful song. Thank you for asking me to sing it. You can spend your whole life building something from nothing. One storm can come and blow it all away. Build it anyway. You can chase a dream that seems so out of reach, and you know it might not ever come your way. You better dream it anyway. God is great. Woo! God is great. Sometimes life ain't good, and when I pray, doesn't always turn out like I think it should. But I do it anyway. I do it anyway. This world's gone crazy. It's hard to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. Believe it anyway. You can love someone with all your heart, all the right reasons. In a moment they can choose to walk away, but love them anyway. God is great, but sometimes life ain't good, and when I pray, it doesn't always turn out like I think it should. But I do it anyway. can pour your soul out singing a song you believe in, that tomorrow they'll forget you ever sang. Sing it anyway. Oh, I said sing. Singing, dreaming, do it anyway. Anyway.
I wish that you all could have been in the room to feel that. I know that you felt quite a bit there, but here was even more powerful, I know. Thank you, Jackie. Beautiful. Thank you, Chris. Practicality, I think, is a word that comes to mind when I think about this new thought, spirituality, that we practice. We don't deny that life can be tough. And maybe right now we are in one of the times where challenge is very, very close, is everywhere we turn. Maybe we, on our own, might be okay. We might be sheltering in place and be sheltering in safety, in the comfort of our homes, with our family. We might be experiencing health, and we might be experiencing a time of reset. But that doesn't mean that the same is true for our neighbors. And so what do we have in times of uncertainty, in times where not everyone around us may have the gifts of the tools that we have? We have the practicality of knowing that in the face of challenge, there are things we can do. There are tools that we can use. And so today, we're continuing our series. This is session 2 on contributing greatly to a world in need of great contributors. And as we speak today about the topic at hand, we open to the possibility that our contribution is now, that our contribution is how we are today. And so the 5 phases of soul that we started on a journey with a couple of weeks ago when we spoke about opening, we now advance to stage 2 of this process, which I like to call constructing. And I had a very interesting experience with construction this week, and y'all know how life is. Life knows when you're aware. Life knows when you're available for it to use the circumstances to reach you. And I knew that when my partner and my father and I decided we were going to drywall my garage this past week, the 3 of us, I knew that there was no coincidence that I would be speaking about construction today, and that I would have the opportunity to get a really good taste of exactly what opportunities are provided for us in the construction process. And the first thing that came to me as I was participating in this process is, as you all might imagine, I was doing quite a bit of assisting. I was not driving the process, and I don't really honestly ever expect to drive any actual drywall construction process, and I'm sure my father and partner will agree with me after this past week. But the point is, what I realized was available to me was very similar to what is available to us in our co-creative dance with the universe, with the divine. And that is the concepts of open-mindedness, waiting, noticing, anticipating, yes, growing tired at times, taking breaks, and allowing compassion for ourselves when we don't show up in exactly the way that we hoped we might, because we meet what some would call our personal wall, right? We hit that wall when we're in the construction phase. And the same is true about life. When we go through the opening phase and we have the visualization, we have the vision of what we want to create, what we want to build, but then those things come in, those thoughts come in as the result of perception. Thoughts that don't always encourage us to continue through the construction process. Thoughts that will encourage us to stop, to pull back, to rethink. And while I'm always a fan of course correction and being conscious of your process throughout, I know the reality, as I'm sure many of you all do, about thoughts that can stop you from allowing yourself to realize your vision. And this assisting process sort of reminded me of, have you ever seen those bumper stickers that say, "God is my co-pilot"? And I think that's kind of funny, actually, because I think that I would make God my pilot, right? Instead of, let me drive and you sit over there and I'll let you know when I need you. It's more about the opportunity to move out of the way, to assist, if you will. Yes, we have a very important part in the creative process, but perhaps we are waiting, noticing, making ourselves available far more than we are actually driving. And so when we look at construction, I see there's three phases of the process. There is the perception that we have with regard to our life, which can be considered the blueprint. When you think about it, how we are perceiving will determine the thoughts that we attract. The thoughts being the building materials, right? And just like building materials such as bricks, one thought after the next thought after the next thought stacked on top of each other ends up being the construction that is born of the process. And so thoughts can be steady, sturdy building materials. Thoughts can also be things that are not as, let's say, in alignment with our original vision of what we hope to create. It's important to be able to be in charge enough of our perception and our thinking that we're able to attract thoughts that actually support the vision we intend to construct. So stay with me on that. When we talk about perception, a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something, perception. And you think about how we have such a vast array of options with regard to how we perceive the events of the world. And we are certainly faced with that now in our circumstances, with possibly being quarantined at home or choosing to shelter safely at home. We have an opportunity to perceive that any way we choose. And the Course in Miracles talks about there is perception through a lens of love, there is perception through a lens of fear. And so some examples of how perception can actually be our power, or the opposite. Powerful perception, right? Power and perception can be the difference in being offended or in being intrigued by the course of events. Offended or intrigued. Purpose, finding purpose as the means of perception. We assign purpose to events, to circumstances. We assign purpose. We have that opportunity, right? We have the opportunity to say whether or not a challenge is going to be an opportunity for us to expand, or a challenge is going to be an opportunity for us to retreat. The challenge is the same. Our perception of that challenge can be different. And possibility, when you consider a perception of possibility versus a perception of doubt can make all the difference in whether you will actually follow through with the vision that you intend to construct for your life. And I thought about why this construction process is so important, and I was reminded of the conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago with you all about legacy. And I thought, it is true that I will probably never be CEO of an actual construction company, but I am CEO of My Legacy Incorporated. And my legacy is happening now because that's the only time and place that life ever happens is right now. So when you pause to consider that every construction that we allow as the result of perception is actually our legacy unfolding now. And so in times of challenge, as we see ourselves, what will we construct? What is the voice of our intuition that someone call God? What is that offering us to construct with these times of challenge? Our best and highest outcome of this time of challenge. Legacy happens now. And so you think about the fact that perception can certainly offer us freedom. Perception doesn't necessarily have to offer us freedom. It all depends on what we choose. And we think about, what is our goal really? What is our goal in perceiving the way that we do? We all know, folks, and we've all been the person who is lost in a need to be right. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the facts that they are actually the one that's suffering. They need to be right. They need to hear an apology. They need to feel like their position is noted or respected. And all the while, that perception of a focus on being right and self-righteousness is creating their suffering, is creating their pain. We always have the option. Rumi said it best when he wrote, "Out beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there." Perception. Is there more than right and wrong? Absolutely. I also had the privilege this week of participating in a webinar. I was an attendee of a webinar that was provided by On-Site Services, which is a recovery center here close to Nashville. And the subject of the webinar was dealing with trauma and when past trauma comes up in difficult times in the present. And they spoke about how many times healing from trauma and grief means you have learned to become your own safest person. Healing from trauma and grief many times means you have learned to become your own safest person. And we can actually learn to keep ourselves feeling calm, safe, and hopeful, even under the worst of circumstances. This reminded me that the suffering we often cause ourselves as the result of misperception, and even more, our lack of challenging our own misperception, means that we may not only not grow into our safest person, but that we also have the opportunity to miscreate through misperception. So basically the converse is true. If we have the ability to grow into our safest person, then as the result of misperception, we have the availability and opportunity to do less than that. Which is why it's so important to be conscious. Are we perceiving life through a lens of love? Are we perceiving life through a lens of fear? Do we believe that ultimately the universe is a universe of benevolence and good? And that we have the opportunity to align our thoughts with that and reap the benefit of thought alignment in that perspective? Or do we believe the converse? What's interesting about perception is that perception actually enables us to attract thoughts. One thought flows into another according to perception. And are your now thoughts in alignment with the legacy you see for yourself? We talked about a couple of weeks ago about actually writing out a legacy for ourselves. And you think, are my current perceptions and my current thoughts in alignment with that legacy that I see myself leaving behind? Because legacy happens now. So I want to back up just for a second and share a quote from Abraham Hicks that I think is a great example of perception. If all you did was just look for things to appreciate, you would live a joyous, spectacular life. If there was nothing else that you ever came to understand other than just looking for things to appreciate, it's the only tool you would ever need to predominantly hook you up with who you really are. That's all you need. A dominant perception of appreciation. That's all you'd ever really need. And so we love tools in this teaching. And so I stumbled across this 3-step perception checking model that I thought might come in handy. And so I'll share it with you all. And that is, whenever you're experiencing pain, suffering, difficulty in life, you have a problem. And when you have a problem, you're the one with the problem. But the good news is, you also have a solution. So we talked in the past about, instead of reaching outside of ourselves for solutions to our problems, let's look at the point of perception to see if that can provide some solutions to our suffering, basically. So this model suggests that when you have a perceived problem or challenge, that you actually write or speak a description of what you noticed. What is your noticing? Actually voice it. And then challenge yourself to provide 2 possible interpretations of what you noticed. Because there's always more than one side to every story. And then, clarification. Request clarification from the source or from a trusted partner about your noticing and interpretations. And if your partner is invested in you the way my partner is invested in me, they will gladly share with you the other way to look at this situation, which is valuable, no question. Provide a description, provide 2 possible interpretations, challenge your own thinking, and request clarification from the source or from a trusted partner for perception checking. And then become a thought leader. You know, as your perceptions improve, you will find that you will more easily attract thoughts in alignment with that perception. For instance, if you perceive someone as being guilty or their behavior as being bad, you will notice that you will attract thought after thought after thought about that person that completely validates your original perception of that person. Just the same, if you're open to the fact that there may have been more to the equation, there may be more to the situation than just your initial perception of wrongdoing, that you will attract thoughts that will substantiate the openness of the perception that maybe my judgment is not all that there is. Maybe this person was suffering too. Maybe they had reason to show up the way that they did. And by becoming a thought leader, we have the ability to change the dynamic of a group. Our perception, being one of love over fear, can literally change the dynamic of a group. And what could be more important in these times of uncertainty than being able to lead through a perception of love? So in closing, as we consider that legacy happens now, and that construction is a part of, in this now moment, of the legacy that we will leave. I love this quote. Love, let my presence be a reminder to myself and others of our innocence instead of our guilt. We have that opportunity, but our perception determines our presence. Our perception determines whether or not when we show up, people will more readily experience their innocence or their guilt. And when you see that image Do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as that beautiful child who is innocent, or do you see yourself as the adult who could have done better, who should have done better? Both are true. But in choosing and perceiving wisely, you have the opportunity to construct a more beautiful experience. And it's very important to keep in mind as you're constructing, it's a process. It happens step by step. It's not overnight, and being patient with yourself is a part of the deal. So Jackie's going to close us out today with a song that speaks exactly to that, step by step.
Great message. Woo! Well, there's a bridge, and there's a river that I still must cross as I'm going on my journey. Though I might be lost, and there's a road I have to follow, a place I have to go. Well, no one told me how to get there, but when I get there I know, 'cause I'm taking it step by step, bit by bit. I know I'm stone by stone, yeah, brick by brick. Said step by step, day by day, mile by mile, ooh, yeah. And this old road is rough and ruined, so many dangers along the way, so many burdens might fall upon me, so many troubles that I had to face. Oh, but I won't let my spirit fail me. No, I won't let my spirit go until I get to my destination. I'm gonna take it slowly, 'cause I'm making it step by step. I know I'm taking it bit by bit. Come on now, move stone by stone. Oh yeah. Said brick by brick by brick by brick by brick, stone by stone. Oh, I'm taking it day by day by day, mile by mile. Oh, going your own way. Say, baby, don't give up. You got to hold on to what you got. Oh, so baby, don't give up. You got to keep on moving. Don't stop. Yeah, yeah. I know you're hurting. Ooh, and I know that you're blue. Said I know you're hurting. Oh, don't let the bad things get to you. No, just take it step by step. Oh, you know you gotta move bit by bit. Say stone by stone. Oh, day by day by day, step by step. Woo. Brick by brick. Come on, baby, mile by mile. Oh, say go your own way, baby. Woo. That's right, you gotta take it step by step, day by day, minute by minute, y'all. Sometimes I gotta take it second by second. You know about that?
I do, and I know how odd it is to not want to come give you a hug.
I know.
But thank you so much, Jackie Wilson, Chris Hatfield, and thank you all for joining us. We look forward to a time that we can be back in the same room together, all one group. And although the time is not here yet, we'll definitely keep you posted on when that will be. So stay tuned on that. If you would like to make a tithe or donation, let you know that the link to make those tithes and donations is in the description of this YouTube podcast, I guess you would say, is in the description of the YouTube file. So anyway, we're taking it step by step. Thank you for joining us. Thank you all again.
Come on, baby, got to keep moving. 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 Come on, step by step by. Ooh, step by step.
You know I'm taking it
bit by bit. You know I move storm by storm, storm by storm by storm. Say brick by brick by brick by brick by brick by brick. I said step by step.
I'm taking it
day by day,
day by day,
mile by mile. Oh,
you know I ain't going for that.
Go your way. Everybody at home, come on, baby, got to keep moving. Come on, baby, got to keep moving. Don't give up.
Got to keep moving.
Come on, baby,
Got to keep
say
moving.
move. Got to keep moving. Come on, baby, got to keep moving. Come on, baby, step by step. Oh,
Yeah. Have a great week, everybody.
Happy Sunday.